Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Anthony Murphy podcast. Today we're talking to Luke Jorgensen, who is the founder of Lush Property Services Group. Luke and his family are based in the Goulburn Valley, and we got him into the studio to talk all things property. Luke is also a certified property valuer, has spent lots and lots of time within the industry, lots of experience, and has now gone out on his own to build Lush Property Services Group to help people invest, find property, buy land, and build their property portfolio. So, very interesting conversation. It's a topic that I'm extremely interested about. So we sat down with Luke, and that conversation is coming up next. Mate, how's things?
Yeah, really well, thank you.
So, mate, I think we need to add a little bit of context here to this conversation. So it's really good to be jumping back into in-person interviews, having people in the studio. That's a whole lot of fun. But for everybody listening and watching in, mate, a little bit of context. We have known each other for a couple of years.
Yep.
Came across each other, or our paths crossed, I suppose, through the local hockey club of all things.
Yep.
So I was a newbie to hockey, very much a newbie. And, mate, you've been at it for most of your life, basically, hey?
22 years, I think it is. Not that
22 years.
Not that I've got the skill of a 22-year veteran, but
You look like it, mate.
I try.
Yeah, exactly.
Fake it till you make it.
That's it. Scored a few. You've scored a few already this season, actually.
One. I've only scored one. I've played 3 games, but only scored one.
I swear the newspapers got it wrong then. I saw a 3 next to your name the other week.
No, that might have been votes.
Oh, would have been 2.
Maybe.
Would have been. I was looking at the wrong section.
It's good to know that I've got some votes. Someone out there likes me.
Keeping up with things. Mate, for everybody who is tuning in, mate, can you please give us a bit of an introduction? Who is Luke from Lush Property Services Group?
All right, so I'm obviously local, grew up in Mooroopna, went to Mooroopna Primary, Mooroopna Secondary, then went to Melbourne to do my tertiary studies, went to Deakin, as well as a short stint at RMIT, and came back to become a property valuer. Now, before that, I did a bit of stuff in real estate and things like that, but found that property valuing was my passion.
Where do you come across? Like, where does that interest stem from? To all of a sudden, I'm going to get into property development.
So the interest started with my parents when I was about 10, 11.
Yep.
They started getting a real interest in looking into property investment. So my Saturdays were going to auctions, open homes. Sundays were, going over the numbers and things like that.
Yep.
And, talking to mum and dad. And look, as a kid, I hated it because when all my friends were out, going to the parks and going on holidays to Queensland, I was at a rental property, cleaning in between tenants and helping mum and dad renovate and things like that. So as a kid, I absolutely hated property and vowed never to touch the stuff because at the time I thought it ruined my childhood.
Yes.
And look at me now.
Exactly.
So yeah, like I was this 12-year-old that knew what a line of credit was, knew what loan to value ratios were, knew what yields were, which isn't normal.
Some pretty serious life skills there, though.
Yeah, but it's come sort of full circle, and it's really helped with what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. So, but the property valuation side of it came from when I was in real estate. Yep. I enjoyed meeting people and looking at their homes and appraising them and telling them what it would be worth on the market. But I didn't like the hard sell. Yeah, so I sort of thought, well, the next natural progression is just do the appraisal side as a job, which is valuations. So
yeah, exactly. Awesome. It really goes to show that you're a product of your environment. Hey,
yeah, exactly.
Like it's just like it's even though you didn't enjoy it at the time, it's something that it's skills and experience that you picked up, and now it's got you very well suited.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw actually you posted something. No, it was on one of your live streams the other day that you mentioned that obviously becoming a property valuer was. You had to go to uni. It was 3 years at uni, and then a couple of years, like basically on the tools, so to speak.
Yes.
That's pretty full. Like that's pretty full on.
It is.
What do you when you go to university to become a property valuer? Like, what's involved there? I suppose you're doing law. You're doing. Do you do much?
We don't do a lot.
Yeah.
It's most uni degrees. You don't do a lot and enjoy the parties, but with with it, there's a few different degrees in Victoria.
Yeah, okay.
Deakin offers 3 years, RMIT's 4, Melbourne Uni's 5.
Yep.
Deakin's was shorter because they didn't do a common first year,
Right.
which the others do, and then they also didn't do the 6 months work experience as part, or your placement as part of the degree either.
Yeah, okay.
Because the guy that developed the course at Deakin found that they had far more students than what they had places. So people were having to delay graduating 6 months later because they couldn't get placements.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Deakin was good. It was very property focused and there wasn't too much airy-fairy stuff with the property. It was, we want reports.
Yeah.
So go and value your own house. We want to do a development feasibility on this site up the road. Here's the site. Here's everything like that.
Yeah, right.
You tell us what it's worth. So it was very much hands-on learning. It was almost like a mixture of TAFE and uni rather than straight uni.
Yeah, yeah.
Did a little bit of law, a little bit of economics, but it was very property focused, which I loved.
And you would have breezed through half of that, hey, because you already.
Some of it was really good. Like I did 12 months at RMIT prior to going to Deakin doing construction management to try and get into the valuing side.
Sure.
And like when I was at RMIT, the 12 months was effectively 2 of the subjects that I did at Deakin, so I didn't pick up a textbook the whole time.
Yeah, right.
Breeze through the assignments, breeze through the what are they called?
Exams.
The exams, yeah.
Yep.
It's a bit of PTSD there, and just trying to block it out. But the exams, I think I ended up with like 97s for those subjects.
Yeah, well.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Made my workload a bit easier. But
Yep.
it was that. A lot of the students that did the degree came out wanting to be valuers. I think I graduated with about 100.
Yep.
And I think about 90 of them went on to try and get into the valuation side. Some of them went into like facility management, like looking after shopping centres and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then some of them went into just your high level due diligence for companies like Stockland and Mirvac and things like that.
Yeah.
But majority of people wanted to become valuers.
Yeah, cool.
And then I happened to send an email out to the guys at Heron Todd White and Echuca and just said, hey, moving back to the country.
What's available?
Do you have anything? They sent me an email back within half an hour and said, would love to meet with you.
Yep.
And by the way, if you want a job, we've got one there. And I think 2 days later, I'd accepted a job.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
And then it was going up to Echuca, then meeting with them after the deal was already done. So which was awesome. And then did the on the job training there.
Yep. Excellent. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Mate, fantastic. How, if anybody is thinking about getting into property development, valuation, all that sort of thing, is there still a lot of opportunity in the market and the industry at the moment?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Valuers in country areas can't get them.
Yeah.
Cannot get them.
Yeah.
So the business I work for, which is Heron Todd White, we've been trying to get someone like an additional valuer in the country for a long, long time. You just can't get them.
Yeah, wow.
There are ones that want to come out of Melbourne after uni.
Yep.
And want to do their on-the-job training in the country, and then as soon as they get their qualification, go back to Melbourne. And a lot of the country guys have gotten wise to that. And unless you grew up in the country, you've gone to Melbourne for your studies, and then you're moving back, they pretty well won't touch you.
Unless you've got some ties to the country.
Yes.
So why is that? Is that like just the lifestyle, or is it the opportunity, the pay, what's for someone to want to have go back to the city?
It's perceived that you make more money.
Yeah.
There is the diversity in property that you can play with in Melbourne is a lot different.
True.
You've got stuff like penthouses at Eureka and things like that where we don't have them in the country.
Yeah.
You've got waterfront property. You've got beachfront property. You've got Toorak mansions that are their pool houses are the size of our houses here in Kialla Lake, sort of thing. And
but tell me if I'm wrong. It would it would be like most other industries. You wouldn't, just come fresh out of uni and then be valuing, houses in Toorak. You would have to work your way up to that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So 12 months after, when you do your 12-month on-the-job training,
Yep.
you can then go for what's called your residential property valuer accreditation,
Yep.
which allows you to do up to $1 million in the country, and I think it's up to 2 million, or it might be 1.5 in the city.
Yep.
And no more than 20 hectares or 50 acres here in the country.
Yep.
And then if you want to go beyond that to get your certified practicing valuer accreditation, it's a further 12 months on top of that.
Yep.
Or you can go straight for your CPV, but it's 2 years. A lot of people in Melbourne do the straight CPV just because they don't necessarily need the residential guys. But here in the country, we've got so much residential work and not enough commercial and rural work to warrant holding someone off for 2 years. So
fair enough.
But so it's sort of that minimum of 2 years before you can go and do that Toorak mansion.
Yep.
But then certain banks, certain companies have requirements to say, well, if you're doing anything over $3 million, you have to have X amount of years experience, and we have to approve you to the panel, and because there's risk involved.
Yeah.
When things go bad, it's usually the top end of town hurts the most. The bottom end doesn't, because talking Toorak mansions, not everyone can afford a $5 million mansion, but far more people can afford a $1 million house in the burbs compared to that $5 million property.
100%.
And, same thing, a $700,000 townhouse, far more people can afford that than $1 million house.
Yep.
And that's why, when things go bad, it's the top end of town. So that's why you need that experience.
Cool. So awesome segue, because I wanted to then talk about, in terms of like liability and risk, and like what, from your perspective as a valuer, what happens on, what are the legalities around that? You go in, you put a dollar figure on a whatever kind of property it is, and then when you say things go bad, like what do you mean in that instance?
Okay, so when things go bad, it's usually when people aren't paying their bills.
Yeah, okay.
Banks come in, foreclose, and then start those mortgagee in possession proceedings. The funny thing around that is when we go and value a property, we say, based on the economic climate at the moment, based on the condition of the property, everything like that, today's figure, it is worth, let's say, $500,000. But there has never been a property that I've gone to that's a mortgagee in possession that looks the same as what it did when it was valued at $500,000. They seem to call all their mates and dump all their rubbish. You'll have, it might be a 3-bedroom house, but there'll be 7 or 8 mattresses in there, and rubbish, and sometimes they've let animals loose inside so they can destroy the property and things like that. So you go, yes, it was $500,000 when I looked at it 12 months ago,
exactly,
and now it's gone to wreck and ruin, so it's only worth $400,000. So there's not really a lot of legalities there, unless when you valued it at $500,000, you weren't doing the right thing and it was actually worth $400,000. So that's where, when we value properties, it's based on comparable sales. So that is trying to compare like with like, or apples with apples, but making allowances for bruises. So a 3-bedroom house in Shepparton, there may be some properties that are the same as that, especially the 1960s cream bricks and 1970s brown bricks. A lot of them, the plans were built the same. But that doesn't mean that those same plans have been offered for sale within 3 to 6 months of when I go to do the valuation. The other thing is, you've got a 1970s home or a 1960s home which is knackered, needs to be bulldozed. You've then got ones that have been looked after, but they might need a renovation. You've then got the ones that have been really well looked after but still original. You've then got ones that were renovated in the 90s or the 2000s or part renovated. And you've got a 1990s kitchen but a 2005 bathroom. And it's all this higgledy-piggledy stuff. So you can't just say, okay, there's a 1960s cream brick at 1 Smith Street. There's a 1960s cream brick at 7 Smith Street. They're the same. More often than not, they're not. And then you've got sheds and carports, garages, pools, all those.
The list goes on.
It does. But we try and compare like with like as much as possible. And that's why when you're comparing, there isn't a rule that says, okay, 3 bedrooms equals $100,000 per bedroom.
Yep.
And 2 bathrooms equals $100,000 per bathroom. Yep. It's all subjective. And because our sales aren't that great, in the sense of we might have a sale for that 1960s cream brick at 300,000 and then the next one might be 340.
Yeah.
Now it can sit anywhere in that 300 to 340, so you've got a $40,000 spread.
Yeah.
So does it sit smack bang in the middle? Is it 315? Is it 310? Or is it 330? And that's why if you get 3 valuers through, you'll typically get 3 different opinions of value.
Yep.
Because the evidence isn't that good.
That's it. Yeah, look, it blows my mind. I was even saying to my wife the other day, like, when you think about how the world operates, and there's so many different facets of, just business, life, things that you can be doing. And when you break it down, like, we could sit here and talk about podcasting, for example. We're sitting here and we're talking about property valuation. There is so much inside of property valuation itself. It's crazy when you think about it. So,
and it's not really an industry that most people know that exists.
No, true.
So usually when I go to a house to value it, people say, oh, so you work at the bank. You work for Westpac. I do.
Yes.
But I'm a subcontractor. So I
Yes.
actually work for, I think we're on the panel for over 90 banks
wow.
across Australia. So, one house I'll be wearing the Commonwealth Bank hat. The next one I'm wearing a Westpac hat.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't, it doesn't matter. And every bank gets the same figure.
Yes.
So we don't prioritise and go, oh, these guys, we like these guys, so they get up. No, it's the same figure.
Yeah.
But people see us for up to sort of half an hour, maybe once every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
They forget that we exist.
Yeah, exactly. But sounds like still a pretty lucrative kind of industry for anybody who's thinking about it. Mate, let's switch gears a little bit, bring it back closer to home. So Shepparton local. Talk to us, mate. Actually, and congratulations, second bub.
Yes,
well done.
thank you.
Very, very, less than 1 week old.
Yeah, she was born 22nd. So,
Mate.
She's a week tomorrow.
A week tomorrow. Look out. Congrats, mate. That's awesome.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. And so in terms of what's happening locally now, obviously property valuation, but we also have, Lush Property Services Group. So talk to us about that.
So, Lush was sort of born out of a hole in the market.
Yep.
Me wanting to put on my investor hat and help people get into the property market. Now, there are some people out there that will do the deep dive books, YouTube videos, podcasts, pay for courses, things like that. And the amount of information out there is massive. Yeah. The amount of misinformation is massive. And just the amount of work you need to put in to get across it is a lot of hours.
Yep.
And so I looked at it and sort of thought, well, is there room for someone who just wants to say, hey, Luke, I want to invest in property. I've got $350,000. What do I do with it? Yeah. There are a lot of companies that do investor nights and they sell you a predetermined house and land package.
Yep.
And we find that they never value up.
Yep.
So they might be sold at $380,000, but they only are worth $300,000.
And you know what? Sorry to cut you off again. I literally only yesterday or the day before saw a video from an Australian property expert who was mentioning a very similar thing to that, where if you're looking for investment properties to stay away from would be house and land packages, townhouses, and apartments, I believe.
Yep.
And for that exact same reason, where by the time you go through the process and you get the keys for your house and land package, everybody else who has a finger in that project has taken what they need out of it and then some.
Correct.
So that most of the time your property's overvalued by the time you get the keys, so that if you're wanting to make a return on that investment, it's going to be either much harder or much slower than other options.
Yep, 100%. Now, with the house and land package, you've got to be careful with that terminology because people believe that, like, if you went to JG King or Metricon or whatever and say, I want that block of land at Kyla Lakes and I want that plan that's 25 squares of living, that's a house and land package. What I'm talking about is where they go, let's get you invested into a property in a completely different town. Here's one we prepared earlier. You just sign the dotted line and we will sell it to you.
Yep.
So those there, and in their marketing spiel, they say all valuers, that they undervalue property.
Yep.
They undervalue it. So they start conditioning you from the get-go that all property that valuers look at, they're going to undervalue. And so when it comes through and they get the valuation to buy this $380,000 house and land, investor package, and it comes in at 300 or 320, they say, told you that all valuers undervalue property. You need to tip in more money.
Yep.
Now on those properties, that shortfall of $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 sometimes is basically the commission that you are paying them for the pleasure of ripping you off.
Yes. Yeah.
Now in that, we've had quite a few of them happen in Shepparton. It happens a lot in country towns because the barrier to entry is a lot lower than trying to do it in Melbourne. So if you're in Melbourne, you're probably looking at $600,000 or $700,000 for a house and land package.
Yep.
Whereas in the country, you can be doing it sub 400. And again, more people can afford under 400 than what can afford 700.
Yep.
So that there then, we've had some that were built in the 2010s to 2013, 14 that are only now selling for a break even. Yeah, wow. So in that, you've then got opportunity cost where if you had have bought something different or, not a house and land package from a spruiker and done it yourself, you could have actually had that by now $100,000 worth of uplift that you can pull and reinvest.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, like as you said before, there's so much information out there, but there's also so much misinformation. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's property, whether it's crypto, whether it's stocks, like it's the same everywhere. So you really do have to kind of one, educate yourself, but also try and find the right information.
Correct.
Because otherwise it can all go pear-shaped pretty quickly.
Correct.
Yeah. So in terms of the services that you provide at Lush, just run us through a couple of those just quickly.
Well, I'll work on those house and land investor packages.
Yep.
We do those.
Yep.
But we do them different.
Sure.
So instead of saying, I'll sell it to you for $450,000, thank you very much, and I'll deliver you a finished product, I show you what the quotes are, and you're paying basically the cost.
Yes.
What it would cost anyone to do it. I've got some contacts. We get things a little bit cheaper. We get looked after. Things get done a bit quicker. And where we have access to land sort of before it goes mainstream sometimes. And with that, we're able to put together a really sharp package for an investor that once it's done is actually worth more than what it cost.
Key point.
Now, for that, I do charge a flat fee. So it doesn't matter whether it's a $250,000 house and land package or a $7,000 house and land package. Sorry, $700,000, $7,000 to be great.
That would be.
Wouldn't need much rent to pay those bills, but it's a flat fee. And that's done purely so it's all very transparent. Because I hate the fact that people get ripped off because they've put their trust in someone. And they're taking them for a ride. At the end of the day, that person who has been taken for a ride, it can financially destroy them.
Yes.
Not only just on a day-to-day basis, but most marriages break down because of finance. Right? So it puts financial stress on the marriage. It stuffs the kids. The kids are one of the biggest losers in this because mum and dad are now separated and I don't want that. So that's what I was looking to do, is to make sure that people got the right info. And I help educate along the way and things like that. So that's one part of it. We are also doing joint ventures. So we've secured some local and also interstate investors who want to build and then flip. Okay. So flip for a profit. Again, using all my contacts, we get a very sharp price on the package. I then fully project manage it, do all the numbers, do the feasibilities, information memorandums, everything like that. We then build it and then sell it to the market, and we then split the profits.
Happy days.
So it gets someone who wants to do property development,
Yep.
but doesn't have the skills but has the money.
Yeah, I like it.
Whereas I'm able to offer the skills and sort of complete that circle.
Yep.
And then we go to market, and then it's basically zero fee until the property sells. So I don't get paid until you get paid.
Again, a really good way to take some of the risk out of it for someone on my side.
Yes.
Knowing that it's not a.
And speaking about risk too, like we also, if the project was to go sour, we also split the losses.
Yeah, cool.
So
Yep.
But at the moment, look, we're seeing uplift of just in blocks of land of $50,000. From what you're able to buy them from the developer for to reselling them at the moment.
Yeah.
There's $50,000 straight away. So
Yep.
when we're talking about blocks that we've secured in July last year,
Yep.
they're starting to be built now. They'll be finished. The houses will be finished by Christmas. We're talking 18 months of growth.
Yeah.
Which is massive.
Yep.
And we've had some success with that, and we've got one client that achieved over $100,000. He sold it before it even went to market, before we've even started building. It was still a block of land.
Yeah. Wow.
And he sold it to a Melbourne purchaser who's moving up.
Yep.
They're happy to go to. They've got a caravan. They'll go touring until the house is finished. After they sell their house down in Melbourne, and happy days.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, look, I mean, I think, and that's something that, you have to take into consideration with all this type of thing as well, is like, where's the market at as well? And like, especially, well, it's probably Australia-wide, isn't it, at the moment? Like, the property market is just
it is hot.
insane.
It is hot.
Yeah. And like, from somebody on sort of the outside, what are the kind of things that are driving? And when we say like hot, we mean that prices are going through the roof for properties. The value of land, etc., is skyrocketing in very short periods of time, as opposed to like normally it's years. What's kind of like driving that? Like, why are things so crazy?
Couple of things. COVID really, and can't almost have a podcast these days without talking about COVID. But COVID has really pushed that whole working from home model.
Yep.
That model that was, it's coming, you're going to be able to work from home, that has been apparently coming for 10 years.
Yeah.
And has happened in some industries and things like that. But when we had those lockdowns in Victoria and you had to work from home, businesses had to put in the infrastructure and change their processes to allow for that.
Yep.
So now that means that Mr. and Mrs. Smith that are living in Carlton in a tiny 2-bedroom terrace and paying heaps of rent or a massive mortgage, they can go, well, for our $1.2 million house or terrace in Carlton, what could we buy in Shepparton? Well, 1.2 buys you some of the best property in Shepparton.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not too many north of $1 million properties that are offered per year in Shep.
Yep.
But then you could turn around and go, well, okay, if we've owned this for 5, 6, 7 years, we've probably got $400,000 or $500,000 worth of equity in that terrace. They could come here and pay cash for most homes.
Yeah.
So for most people, if they didn't have a mortgage,
Yep.
their whole lifestyle can change.
Yeah, exactly.
Your mortgage is typically your biggest, around 30 to 40% of your weekly salary, fortnightly salary, whatever you get paid. But it's a big chunk of the household budget goes to keeping a roof over your head. If you don't have that, most people can then go, well, now we've got a spare $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month. We can now go and invest in property or invest in shares or whatever, or buy that caravan.
Yeah, exactly.
And take the long service leave and do whatever.
Yeah.
So that's driving it.
Yep.
When markets typically go south, and I mean like global markets, pandemics, GFC, recessions, things like that, there is a flock to safety.
Yep.
And property is safe.
Yeah, of course.
Because at the end of the day, a stock in a company can go to zero, you can lose everything because it's a piece of paper.
Yep.
Whereas when you own bricks and mortar, you only lose when you sell.
Yep.
Now, if you can afford to have a tenant in it who's paying the rent, you've got some tax breaks there from the government, and you chipping in a little bit sometimes, not all the time, but chipping in from your own pocket to keep that property, then you don't lose until such time as you have to sell. Now, some people sell property at a loss because of circumstances.
Yep.
Or they didn't pick the right property at the time. There was a huge boom going back from sort of 2005 onwards with your mining towns, and people were investing in mining towns and thought they were king of the world, because overnight they've gone from you couldn't sell a block of land in some of these areas because no one wanted them.
Yep.
To banging buying a block of land for $20,000, putting a transportable house on it, and then it's worth $700,000 or $800,000 overnight, and they're getting like $3,000 and $4,000 a week rent.
Crazy.
But then people started going, oh, I need to buy into this because it's really good. And then all the mining company has to do is turn around and go, this mine's no longer viable, we're pulling out in 6 months, and the market dies.
Plop.
And that's where people are losing money.
Yeah.
As long as a town, the area has fundamentals, and that is, it's not a one-trick pony like a mining town or logging towns and things like that. You've got the certainty. Like here in Shepparton, we've got huge industry.
Yeah.
If
nothing's going, Shepparton's not going anywhere.
No, but if one industry, let's say there's a drought on it and the fruit industry is not doing too well.
Yeah.
Other industries are doing well.
Yeah, there's diversity.
The whole market doesn't die because we've got a drought.
Yep.
Or if we have a really wet season.
Yeah.
Or a good season and fruit's doing really well and things like that, but something else that requires drier weather or and let's say it's land development because they can't get onto site to actually do the works.
Yes.
That drops. The whole market doesn't die.
Yeah.
We're multifaceted. So which your regional towns, as some people say, no, don't invest in regional towns, they're no good. They're fantastic because not everyone has $1 million to sink into property in Melbourne.
Yeah. It's more like your asset then becomes more attainable for a greater portion of the population.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're not sort of pricing yourself out of the market.
For the average person, you are better off buying a $400,000 house in Shepparton or 350 or Bendigo or Ballarat or a large regional centre than hanging on for 3, 4, 5 years to save up enough money to try and break into the metro markets.
Yeah.
Because you save that for 5 years, well, that property in Melbourne's probably gone up another 40%.
Yeah.
So then you've got to save for another 1 or 2 years, and then it's gone up another 10%.
Yep.
So you're chasing this moving
constantly
target.
Chasing tail. Yeah.
Whereas if you had invested in Shepparton or Bendigo or Ballarat or Geelong, that property has gone up anyway over that 5, 6, 7 year period. You've got an asset that by that 7 years will be massively positively geared if you've bought the right asset.
Yeah.
You've still got the asset, and then you've also got equity in it that you can reinvest and buy another one.
Yep.
Happy days.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a snowball effect. It really is with property.
So, it's you don't have to look very hard to see that prices are through the roof, and the land is just being sold before there's a real supply and demand kind of issue at the moment. So for anybody who is looking to get into the property market, whether it's owner occupied or it's investment, what's some of your advice at the moment around, and we've probably already covered off on it, but where should they sort of be looking, or what's some advice for the first home buyer or the first time investor?
Yeah, so if you can afford to get into the market, today's the best day. Tomorrow's the second best.
Yep.
Friday's the third best.
Yep.
The longer you wait, the longer prices are going to go up. The top economists have said we've still got about 30% to run in this.
Okay.
Which means that the median property in Shepparton will go up about $100,000 by the end of this cycle.
Wow.
So, but having said that, there's also FOMO. So we're seeing quite a lot of contracts come through on the valuation side where the property might have been on the market for 380 to 400,000.
Yep.
But it sold for 407.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, you would have looked at it and gone, "What the hell has happened here?" Have they misread or what's the go? Now, some of the agents are saying, "Look, we've got 2 or 3 buyers.
Yep.
You need to put your best foot forward." Now, if you put 400,000 and it sells for 401, are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no. Well, then put in a higher offer. And you need to put in the highest offer that if it goes for $1 more, you're happy to walk away from that. And so that's where we're starting to get people go, well, I'll offer over because the other people won't.
Yeah.
But then 3 or 4 people are offering over just to secure it.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's okay. But if you're buying in 12 or 18 months' time, now I don't have a crystal ball, but that could be when this cycle's finishing.
Yeah.
If you're paying overs in 12 or 18 months' time,
Yeah.
the market will not crash, but it will correct.
Correct.
All markets correct. You know, stocks, you see them go up, they come down a little bit. They go up, they come down a little bit.
Or a lot.
Or a lot. But
Yeah.
the long-term trend with most things is
Yeah.
that it goes up,
Incremental growth.
but you need to be in it for the long term. You know,
Yeah.
the people that lose in property are the ones that buy today,
Yeah.
sell in 3 months' time, going, yep,
Yeah.
we'll be right. And if the market's had a correction in there, you've bought at the height of the market, you're selling on the way down, and then you have to keep lowering your price because more people are selling, and then it becomes a race to the bottom.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, if you can afford to get in,
Yep.
and make sure the fundamentals are there. Like, it's not necessarily pertinent to go and invest in, say, Dookie
Yes.
and spend $300,000 there when you could still spend $300,000 in Shepparton, and you've got far more people that want to live in Shepparton. Dookie's a gorgeous town. It's got
Yep.
some, Mount Major
Yeah.
up there and
Yeah.
some picturesque country.
Yep.
But not everyone wants to live in Dookie.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Whereas, look at how many people want to live in Shepparton.
Yep.
You know, good,
Yep.
bad, or ugly,
Yep.
the town.
Yep.
But some 35,000 people call Shepparton home. Whereas I don't know Dookie's population, but it's certainly nowhere near 35,000.
No, exactly. No, I really like that, and that makes a lot of sense. So, if you're wanting to get into the market, now is the best time because we're at the point where there is still projected, as you said, growth for the next 12 to 18 months. And obviously you want to get in sooner rather than later because otherwise you're going to be getting closer to that peak where the correction might happen. Love that. That's really, really good. In terms of, so that's kind of more on the investment side, in terms of like a first home buyer or somebody wanting to purchase their first property, there's a lot of talk these days, excuse me, the big people like, Grant Cardone and all these other big property, people, personalities. There's a lot of talk going on around, rent where you live and own where you rent, basically, right? So rather than pouring all of your life savings into a property, look at renting first and use the extra funds that you might have rather than tying up all of your cash flow, use that to then start an investment portfolio. Like, where do you sit with that? Like for, let's say, Joe is 25, he's ready, he's got some savings and he wants to get into the property market, needs somewhere to live. What does he do? Does he rent? Does he buy? What's your advice?
So that renting model is called rent vesting.
Yep.
So rent where you want to live.
Yep.
Invest where you can afford to buy.
Okay.
In the country, doesn't really work.
Yep.
Because our rent is higher than what the mortgage repayments would be on the property.
Yep.
So you can go and rent a house that's $250,000 to buy, but it's probably going to cost you $330 a week to rent.
Yep.
Now, that $330 is, or your repayments on that $250,000 house after you've put in your 10 to 20% deposit is probably going to be $250 a week. So your shortfall in renting in the country in that scenario is roughly $70.
Yeah. Yep.
But if you're living in Melbourne, that's where it changes, or Sydney. People want to be in the city.
Yep.
And our model in Australia is very different to like the US. In the US, the further away from the city that you live, the more affluent you are.
Yep.
Because you can afford to travel. Whereas in Melbourne,
Yeah.
the closer you are to the CBD, the more affluent the areas are, and Bayside and things like that. But you go and rent a house in Richmond, it might cost you $2,000 a week. But that property is probably $3.5 to $4 million.
Yep.
So your repayments on that are probably going to be $3,000 to $4,000 a week.
Yep.
So it's renting where you want to live. If you want to live Docklands in a penthouse, walk to the footy every Friday and Saturday, cafes, public transport, rent there because to buy it, it's going to be far more expensive.
Sure.
But then the difference in what you would pay to own that property, you then go and invest in either regional Victoria, you might go to Epping or outer west,
somewhere on the fringe,
Geelong, Werribee, somewhere like that. That you're to buy a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom 1970s house.
Yes,
you're paying less than half the price of what the unit or townhouse that you're renting is. The other benefit of that is a lot of younger people want to be able to move. If they're in Melbourne or in the country and they then want to go and get a job somewhere else, they don't have to worry about selling a house. They hand in their
flexibility,
their 1 month notice. And then they can pack up, move to Sydney. And then have the lifestyle in Sydney.
Happy days.
And us as our younger generation is far more mobile than what our parents were. A lot of our parents and grandparents born, lived and sometimes died in the same town or within the same, like the Goulburn Valley or areas like that. Whereas how many of our brothers and sisters have moved away? Like some are in Melbourne, some are Sydney, Perth, Queensland, all over the shop.
It's exactly the case with my family. Brother in WA, a couple of sisters in Queensland, another brother down in Gippsland, just spread out everywhere.
Exactly. Now they may stay there and raise families and stay there for the rest of their lives. But your brother in WA might go, actually, WA, the market's a bit too funny with mining and things like that. There's a bit less certainty. I'm going to move to Sydney because Sydney's got great weather like we do over here in Perth. Well, okay, he still hasn't moved back to Shepparton. But he can pack up and leave.
Exactly.
And he's not hanging on to an asset. And property is very expensive to get into and get out of. It's not like shares how you can have a spike at 9:30 and sell out and have your money in your account at 9:35. Properties are to get in. You've got all your legal, your stamp duties and all of that. So you're talking tens of thousands of dollars to buy a property, and then when you're selling it, you've got your agent's fees and legals and sometimes repairs and maintenance that need to happen. So again, you could be talking tens of thousands. So it's one of those things that to buy and sell a property, depending on where it is, it could be $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 that you've somehow got to get from somewhere.
Exactly. I think like the whole conversation around owning your own property or owning the property that you live in, it just comes back to the way that you and there's risk involved with everything, right? But I think the conversation is more around the fact that if you, buy the house that you live in, you obviously, and as you mentioned, it depends on where it is and what the market's doing, but you're pouring your income in to pay for this asset, but you're also paying interest on top of that. You're paying, your taxes, your rates, all this other stuff, because people can look at it and go, "Yep, awesome! I'm going to pay my house off as quickly as possible," and then basically, I've got the whole equity of that asset in my hands. But if we're talking about a $400,000 property, and it takes you 15, 20 years to pay that off, you have to think about all of the interest that you've paid on the loans. You have to think about everything else that goes with that. So yes, you might all of a sudden have this $400,000 asset, but how much have you paid in order to acquire that over the period? And has your money, is that the best use of your money? So one of the things that I've learned, over the past sort of 12 to 18 months is whenever you're going to pay for something or make an investment, you really have to think about how hard is this dollar going to work? And is there something else that I could do with this dollar where it would work harder for me? So for anybody who is kind of, tossing up, should I rent, should I buy? I love the fact how you broke that down, because you can look at that and go, right, well, perhaps renting based on where I live isn't the best option because of the way the market's situated. So love that. That was awesome.
Unfortunately, property ownership is a horses for courses, and same with property investing. You can't sort of go, okay, with shares, Tesla's going to go through the roof. Buy Tesla stocks, it all goes up. Everyone can do that. Well, not everyone can buy an investment property in Shepparton because we don't have enough stock. Someone's going to miss out. And then they'll have to go somewhere else. But is buying that necessarily in line with your goals?
Exactly.
Right. If you're later in your life, closer to retirement, you might be looking at, instead of getting an asset that's got capital growth potential in the city, you might be looking at something that's got some really good returns and cash flow, and that might be a block of 3 units. because the cash flow is huge. You can't eat equity.
Yep.
You know, when you retire and you're on the pension and you go to the supermarket to buy your loaf of bread and milk and the paper, you can have $5 million worth of equity in a property that's not going to pay for your milk.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got the cash flow coming in, that helps. So earlier on in life, you know, your capital gains are really good. When you get later on in life, cash flow is better.
Yes.
That's a general rule as well. Because cash flow keeps you in the game.
Yep.
Typically with Melbourne, if you're buying a property down there, you might have to tip in $300 a week
to service it,
to keep that property with a tenant in it.
Yep.
Not everyone wants to do that.
No.
You know, $300 a week, you know, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Some people might prefer to go out and buy a newer car, eat out 3 nights a week, and go to the movies.
Yep. Yeah.
Although, I don't even
I don't go to the movies. But I think they're back on in some places.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But it might be that they save up and go to Queensland 3 times a year. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that might be their preference.
Yeah, exactly.
So they might look at a country property and say, it is a horses for courses. There is not a one size fits all. It is based on you and your goals.
Yep, 100%. And like, you know, some people want that flexibility and want to be able to just rent and, you know, give their month's notice and move on. Other people want that security of owning the home that they live in. So yeah, exactly. Horses for courses. Love that, mate. So to kind of tie all this in, actually one thing we haven't spoken about, mate, is renovations.
Yep.
So actually, you know, one of my brothers has been doing this quite successfully recently down in the Gippsland area, buying fairly old properties, you know, that really do need a renovation, and you know, he's been successfully able to flip those properties and make quite a bit of cash. Again, the market is, you know, in a position where that is definitely in his favour. But I'm sure that there's pros and cons when it comes to renovations as well. You don't want to, like, you know, overspend and then you can't, you know, make a return on the renovation. So a bit of advice around renos.
Yeah, overcapitalisation is the killer of property, really. Yeah. So with the renovation side, we're looking to partner with people who are looking to sell their property.
Yep.
Know that it needs a reno, so, you know, 1960s cream brick or a 1970s brown brick. And I say brick because majority of our properties around here are brick.
Yep.
But then you go up to Queensland and most of them are weatherboard.
Yeah.
Like, they don't necessarily like brick.
Yes.
And that's because Queenslanders are built up off the ground and things like that.
Yep.
But yeah, an older property that needs a reno, you know that it can sell for more with a renovation done, but you might not have $20,000 or $30,000 to put into a renovation. And then what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you pay someone to come in and put in a kitchen that might cost $20,000? Is that the best use of the $20,000? Probably not.
Yep.
If you've got this new kitchen and the rest of the house is dated, then no, it's not the best use of the money. And same thing, do you go and spend some money on some new carpets and a new bathroom but have a dated kitchen?
Yep.
Again, probably not. So, yeah, we're looking to partner with people who want to sell their homes. We haven't been able to strike it lucky yet with a lot of in this market because people are very much, I'll rather take one in the hand than two in the bush. Yeah. Yeah. At the moment, I can sell my dated home for good dollars.
Yes, exactly.
But what they don't see is they can sell their renovated home for even more dollars.
Yeah.
So we assess the property, look to where the money's best spent.
Yep.
And I actually tip in my own money.
Yep.
It's no money out of the property owner's pocket.
Wow.
It's my money.
Yep.
But the agreement is that when it sells, you get what we determine the unrenovated value of the property is.
Yep.
You get that.
Yep.
I get my money back on top of that. So let's say the house is worth $300,000.
Yep.
Unrenovated. And I'm going to put in $20,000. So you're guaranteed your $300,000. If it sells for $305,000, great. You get your $300,000 and I've lost some money.
Yep.
I get $5,000 out of that.
Yep. Yep.
So if the property then sells for, say, $380,000,
yes,
you get your $300,000.
Yep.
I get my $20,000.
Yep.
And then the difference, which is $60,000.
Yep.
We then split that.
Yep.
So you get an extra
$30K. Yeah.
And I get $30,000. And that's for the risk.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, your renovated home is going to sell for more than what your unrenovated home is.
Yep.
There is no risk for you.
Yes.
We do an 8-week turnaround,
Yep.
so it's fairly quick.
That is quick.
But it goes from nothing.
Yeah.
I don't say nothing. It goes from average to wow.
Yes.
And a lot of people talk about the potential of a property and things like that, but I can tell you about 80% of the market can't see the potential. They can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
They look at something and go, oh, the carpet's a yucky yellow colour and the walls are cream. I don't like that.
Yeah.
They can't see that you can rip the carpet up,
Yeah.
put down, vinyl flooring or laminate, give it a paint, and that's changed.
Looks completely different. Yeah.
So it's utilising my knowledge in what adds the most value.
Yep. Yep.
And knowing where to spend dollars and where to not necessarily spend dollars. Big surface areas have the best return on investment. So paint, carpets, things like lawns and mulch.
Yeah, right.
Go to one of the local sand and soil places, get some black mulch for a couple of $100, throw it around your front garden and take a before and after photo. It looks $1 million.
Yeah.
And all you've done is throw around some coloured coloured wood.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's that wow. Buyers walk
the
in
impression.
and they go, oh wow, I love this.
Yeah.
I love the white colour schemes and the greys and things like that. It's modern. Not too many people don't want to live in a modern renovated home.
Yeah.
I say modern. You've got your period homes in like central Shepparton, which will still have, they can still be modern with the period style.
Yes. Yes.
I'm talking modern as in modern and functional, as opposed to dated and decrepit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone wants to live in modern. Everyone wants shiny and new.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where, utilise my knowledge on the market.
That's right.
Lift
the value.
And look, I've done numerous renovations with my parents.
Yep.
They own a couple of rentals.
Yep.
And we've done some fantastic things. I actually put a photo up the other day of a renovation that was done on a Marupna property, and it just looks $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not overly expensive, but when people talk renovations, they think you've got to spend $150, or they look at the block and go, okay, 12 weeks, but the budget's $350,000. Well, for $350,000, unless you're going to stay in it for 20 years, buy a new house.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Or unless it's got some emotional value, or it's a $1.5 million house in Corio Street that you can sink 350 into it, and it's going to be worth probably $2 million at the end. Yep. Yeah, then do it. But most people don't have $300,000 of cash sitting around doing nothing that they can sink into a renovation.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so that's that side of it, and like I said, the appeal to the buyer is they don't need to have vision. They are shown what the property can be right from the get-go. So you can fall in love with it. You can tug on the heartstrings and the emotional connection, and that's what makes people pay the most money is tugging on that emotional connection. Yeah,
the emotion, 100%. It's like most things in life: marketing, property, emotion.
Exactly.
Yeah. Psychology, mate. Absolutely loved this conversation. Is there anything we haven't touched on?
I don't know. We've been pretty broad, haven't we?
We have. We've covered a lot. Now, and I think it's definitely one of those things where, for me personally, even it's about finding the right people to get the right information from. Right. So again, as I said before, whether we're talking marketing, whether we're talking property, whether we're talking crypto, it's trying to find a trusted source of information, so that you can take the next best step and make those dollars work as hard as they possibly can for you.
And trust is one of those things that it's very, very hard to get, but it's very easily lost.
Yeah, 100%.
You can work for 5 years to build trust with someone, and it can be lost in one conversation.
Yep.
Or one action. So, and look, I'm here. I'm a local. I'm not, in here for 12
blown
months.
In from overseas or something.
Burn people and then go to the next town. I want to build relationships, long-term relationships.
Yep.
I'm only young.
Yep.
And I want to be able to help, especially the younger, younger people here in Shepparton, have a 20, 25, 30-year relationship with them that we can all build some wealth together.
Yeah, 100%.
And all retire quite wealthy and we can all sit around, play some cards, drink some coffee.
Happy days.
And reminisce about the good times.
Love that, mate. Where can people find out more about yourself and Lush Property Services?
I was going to say Instagram.
It's a good place to start.
Yep, that's always a good one. Facebook.
Yep.
Facebook's sort of the big one. As well as our website, Lush Property, lpsg.com.au.
Love it.
And a little bit on YouTube. I'm slowly putting more and more of my content on there.
Yep.
Just because I'm over Facebook throttling my my content from 4K down to at best 480p for the nerds out there.
Yes.
YouTube as well.
Love that.
We do lives every fortnight.
I was going to say, jump over to Lush Property Services Group on Facebook. Luke's going live, sharing some really, really good information and things that we haven't even covered off today. Around one of your recent lives was around valuations. Banks versus councils versus agents. So still a stack more that people can sink their teeth into. So
and if you want to get in touch and ask a question, you can ask it anonymously or put your name to it. I'm more than happy to do a video on it covering it. If it helps you, the viewer or the listener, get some information around property and some education, more than happy to help.
Yeah, love that. As always, guys, if you do have any questions for Luke, please reach out to him on his socials. If you've got any feedback on this episode, we'd love to hear it. Let us know, your property success stories. If you're trying to break into the market, how can Luke potentially help you? As always, we'd love it if you would share the episode with someone. If you've got some mates or you know somebody who might get a stack of value from this episode, feel free to share it. Take a screenshot, upload it to Instagram stories. All of that fun stuff, and we appreciate your time for listening and watching. We'll catch you on the very next episode. So that's it for another episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you love the show, the greatest form of feedback you can give is to leave a review. It helps the show grow, it helps more people find it, and I would really appreciate that. Head over to anthonygmurphy.com where you'll find all the show notes and links for today's episode. And if you just want to stay up to date with me and see what I'm up to, head over to Instagram, Anthony G. Murphy, and say g'day. And I will talk to you in the next episode.